HCPX Tuesday night. Put that X up in the air, D-Style. Put that X up.
Go.
Get those X's up. Let's get them up in the chat. Get those X's up. Dude, lightweight. Big things happening at lightweight. Undisputed. This is what it's about. Look.
What defense?
No
the
games
title
here.
defense.
No games here. There's no catch weights. There's no rehydration clauses. D-Style. You got 17 weight classes in boxing. 17. That's plenty enough. There's no need to make an 18th weight class. And by the way, I'll never forgive you. I will never forgive you for, getting behind this Bridgerweight thing. for the kid that got eaten by the dog.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. So we have to support kids that defend their sister from rabid dogs. You know what I mean? We have to be supportive of these kids and not attack them, every chance we get. I'm just saying, it's not a good look, Alex.
By creating a division, never let a good tragedy go to waste, right? Like the kid that gets eaten by the dog and Suleiman's like, yes, this is my
That's the thing. He wasn't eaten. He stopped his sister from getting eaten and saved his sister.
It's ridiculous.
Part of a champion.
But all I'm saying is this is good to see, right? It's like this is good for traditionalists like myself. It's like the belts are on the line and the belts are on the line. And all of them are on the line. And there's no, hey, let's do it at 131, with a 10-pound rehydration clause. This is the belts are on the line. Weigh in, make the weight, and let's roll. Let's rock and roll. That's what it is. That's what this is. This is beautiful to me. This is beautiful. And it's like
no one asked for anything. They just obviously they probably talked money, but that's about it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I just like the interesting dynamic between that and 136 catch weight rehydration clause and the lightweights not fighting for the lightweight belts, and saying they're above the belts. And then you got these two dudes just roll around and say, you know what? Let's fight for the belts. Let's do this. Let's do it. Haney, is he growing on you as a fan because he has as me? There's a string now. This is a track record. It's a clear track record trend, right? It's Linares, Jojo Diaz, Cambosos, both in Australia, undisputed, and now he's going to defend it against Lomachenko.
I'll be honest. I'm not a fan of the way he wins fights, but it's all about preference. I'm not here to like it is. I don't like the. I feel like if a ref warned him and told him to stop holding so much, I think he would have still won those fights and probably in more impressive fashion, which would have been better for him anyway. But that aside, I think Loma will have answers for the holding. I think Loma will be ready for that, and he has to. Okay, and for those that don't know, Loma practiced jiu-jitsu, judo, he's practiced other martial arts, so he's ready. You know what I mean? But to answer your question, not the way he fights, but his resume speaks volumes. You know what I mean? I don't need to like the way he does it, but he's done it, and I got to give him credit for that.
And let me tell you something real quick. And I just want to tell you this real quick before we go forward. Do not mention this man's name. Don't do it. We are not going to mention his name. We're going to go a whole show. You are not going to mention his name. None of us are going to mention his name.
He who shall not be mentioned. Mr. X. He is. We named the show after him. Mr. X.
Look at it. We'll just, for a second, we'll just look at it and we'll admire the beauty of it. 8-0.
And in the Cheyenne wind, I can still hear her say.
8-0, but we have to say, nobody in the chat. Look, if you're in the chat and you mention this name, if you bring it up, you may be banned for life. We're just not going to do it. We don't want, people are touching. Don't say the
Don't say the name.
Do not. I'm just warning people once again. Do not say this man's name. Don't type it in the chat. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. Once we take this off the screen, don't even think about this.
You know what? You're not allowed to think about him. Move from this moment on, not even think. If you even think about that name, you're protecting Saúl Canelo Álvarez. What you're doing. Do you understand me? If you think about the name.
It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Especially now knowing the backstory of it, right? Like Samson is out there 2 weeks ago saying, yeah, we're going to make the Morrell Jr. fight. And then they just put it on Canelo fans saying this stuff. We forgot this dude existed. Like, he's 8-0. I'm not even
thinking about the dude, bro.
The guy whose name we will not mention is 8-0. I don't know what it's the weirdest thing ever.
Here we go. Joe Lopez 40 ounce already. Like you had one job. Did not understand the assignment.
You had one assignment to not mention the name.
What's the matter with you, Joe Lopez? People like you are the problem with boxing.
You do not suggest that a fighter fights. Just don't do it.
Just don't do it. His name is named after him, Mr. X. He should not be spoken.
Like Team Batman Boxing is wishing for the fight. This can't happen. This can't happen. Like Chicano is saying he's the future. I mean, come on.
You guys are too much, bro. You're too much. Like, you're the problem with boxing.
Yeah, ridiculous. But anyway, look, Haney Lomachenko, love the fight. Yeah. The reason I love it's just so many reasons. It's for all the belts, it's the hardware, everything. Everything's on the line. Fighters behaving like fighters, and on top 100%.
Of it, I guess what counts.
It's the natural order, right? Is healthy divisions have this. Healthy divisions have fighters who care about the belts, and then they have older guards, like the older guard, that are like protecting things from the younger fighters, the younger lions who are looking to clout chase off of the name or become that dude. And what's weird about this is, inversely, Haney is the dude. He's the one with the hardware, and it's the older guy trying to get back to the top. The guy trying to be perceived as number one, right? And it's that battle. And that's the beautiful thing about this is I look at the betting odds, to be quite honest, and I'm sure Lomachenko will be looking at this and saying, hey, I'm undervalued here. I feel a bit disrespected as a 3-1 underdog. You know, he's coming in at plus 230. I was surprised to see it that wide. I think it'll tighten. At those odds, I'll put a little money down on Lomachenko. When you first see these odds, what do you think? Do you think that's priced about correctly?
I would say yes. I think those are pretty. Yeah, it looks about right to me, to be honest. I think I would put Haney, maybe me personally, more like a negative, like a better value, like maybe a negative 170, maybe. But I'm not complaining too much. I mean, I don't think it's that much of a lock to have him that much of a negative, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's within. And if you look at our poll, 50 to 50, 20 votes in, it's 50% to 50%. So I think it's going to be one of those type of things where, you know, the betting odds will say the betting odds, but I think the public will be split on this. And that's about where I'm at, because I watch these guys fight stylistically, and Devin Haney has been successful in, you know, he's a big lightweight. He's been successful in the style that we don't necessarily like, right? It's the hit and hug. The 1 or 2 punch combination and then hold. But the thing that's interesting about it is
the art of the octopus style.
Right, but he's actually in some exciting fights in that he's shown vulnerabilities, right? Like Linares' fight. Linares had success in breaking those clinches because he has some technical ability, right? And then speeding up the fight and then hurting Haney later in the fight. Jojo Diaz had some success with it as a pressure fighter. Kambosos did not. Kambosos did not deal with that style well at all. We know styles make matchups. It's going to sound cliche, but it's true.
100%.
He did not do well with the clinching at all. He couldn't get anything going. Lomachenko is going to be cut more from that Linares cloth, except I think even better in that he does not allow himself to get clinched. He's going to speed up the fight, right? It's Pacquiao versus Hatton. He didn't allow himself to get clinched. Canelo, 11th round against Plant. He was not allowing himself to get clinched throughout the fight. The whole fight. as opposed to Benavidez, who was allowing himself to get clinched for half of the fight against Caleb Plant. But Lomachenko, I believe, is going to successfully speed up the fight a little bit and force Haney into some uncomfortable spots. Would you agree with that?
100%. One thing I want to say before it leaves me. So I know we cannot mention a name that cannot be named, right? I get that, right? So we're not going to name the unnamed dude. Like Mr. X shall not be spoken of, okay?
Don't say his name.
But here's what I'll say, and I said this earlier on my podcast. I said, look, it appears to me that only divisions where Canelo is active is it tolerated that guys are that we cannot. You better not mention the other top fighters fighting other top fighters, right? Canelo needs to fight all of them, right? Like, but David Haney and Loma, both of them actually fought tough opposition while they were waiting on their shot. Okay, like you just mentioned Linares. You mentioned Jojo Diaz. These are guys that Haney fought, right? Haney didn't fight Linares and they just say, that's it. I don't need to fight nobody else. You better not even suggest that I need to fight anybody else until I fight for Undisputed. Like, he didn't say that. He went and he fought Jojo. Then he went on and then he did fight for Undisputed, right? So it is what it is. You didn't see him say, well, Cambosos didn't need to fight anybody. And so why should I have to fight somebody, huh? Like, he didn't. Like, he didn't have to do all that. Like, he just did his thing. And then Lomachenko, same thing. He fought Nakatani, right? After Nakatani, like, fucked up Verdeo and shit, right? And many thought, like, he gave Teofimo all types of, like, people were saying, why is he going to fight him? Because that's what Lomachenko does. He wants tough opposition. Then he fought Comey, a former world champion, right after that. You know what I mean? And guess what? He was criticized for fighting Coleman because we have a higher standard for Loma. That's why he was criticized. I didn't see the same people that criticized Loma criticize Ramirez for fighting him. Like, you know what I mean? It's whatever, but that's the truth. But they fought tough opposition. Loma's been fighting. He just fought a young, what's the dude's name again? The guy fought Ortiz.
Yeah, Jermaine Ortiz. He's a good fighter. And by the way, can't get a fight right now.
A guy that beat and retired, the Marine dude, Herring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Shout out to Herring. Good fighter. Beat him, retired him, right? Like, Shakur gets all types of credit for beating Herring. Ortiz beats Herring. But when Loma fights him, why is he fighting him? He's a young dude. But guess what? He fought a young, hungry lion, right? But if we even suggest that a dude in Canelo's weight class fights a young, hungry lion, don't do that. Don't even say the name. Don't even whisper it. You know what I mean? But the reason I'm looking forward to this fight, because both guys have done the gamble, right? Calculated risk, but they were risks nonetheless. And they both are now meeting in the ring. They both need each other in this moment, right? Loma needs Haney to show, hey, I still got it. I'm not done. Okay, I'm still in the mix. I will prove to people that I am still a top pound-for-pound fighter on this planet. Okay, I will correct, the course of action. Okay, I dropped the ball against Teofimo, but now I have an opportunity to correct that, right? And then Haney has an opportunity, right, for all the detractors that are saying, yeah, he beat Jojo, but Jojo was moving up in division. Yeah, he beat Linares, but he didn't knock him out like everybody else knocks out Linares, which is, all these things are partially true, right? But nonetheless, there were risks, there were tough fights, right? And then, guess what? Now he has that opportunity to fight Lomachenko, and he has an opportunity. Like, okay, the Cambosos fight wasn't good enough. Cambosos was lucky to be in that position. Okay, now he gets to fight Loma to prove he belongs as the champion, right? They both need each other. They've both taken the risks necessary to get to this point. Okay, they both did the work to get to this point, and that's what I love. It wasn't just one guy doing all the work and then one dude just sitting around or just had one big win. That's it. No, they both worked towards this, right? Which is why I believe, Calix, right? It may not be the most popular fight, okay? It may not be the hit on the number one single, okay? Like Ryan versus Tank's going to be. But it's the better song, okay? It has the better instruments. It's got the better vocals. It's just objectively a better song that was from two singer-songwriters, okay? And no auto-tune, all right? Because this Tank Ryan is a definition. If these were songs instead of fights, that fight will be auto-tune. Okay, it would be a mumble rap auto-tune #1 hit. But this one is a nice harmony. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Oh,
substance, right? It's substance, and it's a legacy fight, and it's a fight that will age better, right?
it should age better. Yeah.
This is a legacy. It's a substance fight. This is what we're here for. This is what got us into loving this sport. Now,
and we
this
have
is a good teachable moment too. Before you ask that question, just hold it for a second. This is a good teachable moment, and it goes back to everything you were just saying. Is losses aren't the end of the world. To me, Haney seems to be recognizing that, right? Like, that's why I don't like the style. You're absolutely right. I don't like hit and hug, but aside from that, I love how this dude is carrying his business right now. He recognized, he's saying he's gonna be the I'm gonna be the anti-Tank and Ryan. I'm gonna be the guy that no, we're gonna fight with no rehydration clause, none of that stuff. And then on top of that, I'm gonna cut the fat. And on top of that, I do care about the belts. I want the belts. I value the belts. So I value that as a boxing fan. Like you said, this may not do those numbers, but I love how this dude is carrying his business. Love it. Love it. And losses aren't the end of the world. Lost to Salido, lost to Teofimo, and we want to see if he can get back, right? And you care about fighters who go in there with tough competition. A guy will go in there with Salido in the second fight, Gary Russell Jr. the third fight. There'll be those arguments, those debates as to, is Lomachenko as much as high as ESPN and Top Rank were hyping him up to be? Those are all fair. All that's fair. But what we know is we're invested in Lomachenko's career because we're still here, and we still want to see if he can become undisputed, because he dropped the ball against Teofimo. Teofimo just straight up beat him. And there was no, injury or not, you were in there. And there was no doubt about that. Teofimo beat him. He works his way back.
They were both injured, by the way.
Let's see if Haney, the thing has been, the Haney detractors have said, yeah, you did all that, but would you beat Lomachenko? We're going to find that out too.
Yeah, look, a lot of things to consider here, but the one thing that we have to question ourselves, right, with the sport, and us as boxing fans to look at the mirror, and maybe it's not us boxing fans, but because, look, I'm going to keep it real. The Tank versus Ryan fight, it is going to do better numbers.
Oh,
and we have to ask ourselves why. And then for the up and coming boxers, right? Like the ones that are 15 years old right now, right? The fighters that are young right now and training, and like one has to ask, like what path should I take? Should I go the path of Loma, who's been in nothing but title fights for the most part since the second pro fight? Only since recently did Loma kind of just fight as a contender, really. You know what I mean? And kind of earned a title shot again, in my opinion, with substance, by kind of showing, you know what, I'm going to beat some tough lightweights right now and prove that I deserve another title shot. So I think I commend him for that. And then you had Haney, who again, he fought Jojo Linares. Then he obviously got in the ring with Camboza, signed a two-fight deal, right? One-sided or whatever, but nonetheless, both in Australia. Foreign soil, goes and beats him over there. But my point is, it's crazy to me, right? That the two guys, like, let's be honest, like Ryan has pulled out of fights because he had mental illness. Mm-hmm. His biggest win is Luke Campbell, which I thought was a great win, but like that's the one win he's really had like that, right? Mm-hmm. His last performances were kind of lackluster, to be honest with you. And then you had Tank Davis, who's made a career, a whole career of not fighting the top guys.
Yeah.
He's been living off till this day. They bring up Pedraza every time Pedraza is going to fight. Oh man, that Tank wins aging well. Like I'm like, bro, that dude fought him like 5 years ago, bro. Like Jesus, you guys are that shit is aging like spilled milk at this point. And Pedraza losing all the fights. He's not even winning the fights, right? But what I'm saying is the guy that the fight that has a rehydration clause and the catch weight, and with the two guys that have not fought the gauntlet at 135 or 140 for that matter.
Tough to swallow, right?
Yeah, like we have to question here. Like we have to wonder what future generations are thinking when they're looking at this. You know what I mean? Now on the flip side, what I will say is
that seems like the exception, right?
It seems like the exception, but here's why it may not be. And it's what I was going to say next. The thing about Tank and Ryan is that they're both action fighters. Like, they're both fun to watch. Okay? So what I don't want fighters to assume is that you could fight like a Devin Haney and get away with fighting the level of opposition Tank was fighting. Haney would not get away with that. Nobody would care like that. The reason Tank gets hit, he hits people back, he's stalking guys. Mario Barrios was not a high-level 140-pounder, but guess what? It was still an exciting fight to watch because Tank was getting hit.
Yeah.
Like this big guy was hitting Tank, and Tank was hitting him back, and it was exciting to watch. It was an exciting fight, right?
And he's sort of an anomaly, right? Because he throws 34 punches per round.
Yeah, but like he's throwing.
It's sort of like what people say with Floyd. Somebody was asking who's the next Floyd earlier on Twitter. I said nobody. He's one of one, and nobody's gonna replicate that. Like they're gonna be studying that in museums a century from now. Like, how did this dude with this style perfectly polarize the market at the perfect time and to become the greatest, one of the greatest prize fighters that ever lived?
Look, like it's like this. Floyd is the only one that's mastered, right? Being big on social media and still being a top fighter, right? Now, but when Floyd did it, Floyd was already a Hall of Famer, established. But since then, we haven't really had a fighter that we're going to need a fighter, Calix, that is big on social media, has a big social media following, and sets an example, right? One might argue it's Canelo, but Canelo's really not that big on social media. He just isn't. We need someone who was known on social media, but then he does the Haney Lomachenko thing and fights the top guys and doesn't say things like, because when Ryan says, oh, believe me, belts don't matter, guys. Belts don't matter. That's sending the wrong message, in my opinion, because belts give a hierarchy in boxing. You know what I mean? And what I was going to say to something you said earlier, just to finish this point, belts do matter. I agree with you. But context matters, though, right? Like, I don't think belts are everything, but they're important. You know what I mean? So I think they matter, but they're not the only thing, and they're not the end-all, be-all either, right? Because there are paper champions out there. There are guys that want a vacant belt, and then they're not fighting anybody. Berto was one of them, quite frankly. Broner, nobody can name me like half of the dudes he beat for the belts he won. Like, you know what I mean? So Paulie Malignaggi was a paper champion at 147, if we're honest. He wasn't one of the top welterweights. He wasn't a top 4 welterweight when he was a belt holder. He just wasn't, right? So context matters, but in this case, these are the top 2 lightweights in the world with their resume, and they've proven they are. Okay, and that's why in this fight, it definitely matters, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, and shout out to Al Money. Appreciate the super sticker. Definitely appreciate that. And it goes deeper than that with the belts. Before I touch on a couple other things, is context matters, and it goes further than that. It's some fighters need the belts. Some of them do. Some of them don't. But at the same time, even if they don't, they may be at the point in their career where they still need them as far as legacy. And I think Ryan and Tank, that point is being missed on them, particularly Ryan, because he hasn't had one yet. You know, Tank can roll out those Reggies and say 3 division belt, and he's going to fool people. But Ryan just doesn't have one yet. And I think even though you're above
He
the
has an
belt
inch from, I
financially,
guess.
yeah, even though you're above the belt financially, that doesn't mean you're above the belt. Now, with other fighters, I said this about Floyd and Manny when they were in their heyday, and I'm asking myself, why is Manny still fighting for welterweight belts when he's already been the welterweight champion? Why pay the sanctioning fee? Unless you're gonna fight in another weight class, why do it? Why pay those sanctioning fees? You should be above the belts right now. I said the same thing of Floyd. Unless you're gonna go up to fight at middleweight, why do you keep fighting for these belts or defending them? But I guess it's the defense thing as well. Same thing with Golovkin right now. Golovkin may be in the position where he says, I'm going to drop those belts because I feel like I'm above them, and maybe either retire or face Munguia if I'm going to keep fighting. So they may feel they're above the belts, and they may be right up to a certain point. But a lot of these fighters who are saying the belts don't matter are not in a position to where they can say the belts don't matter. In more cases than not,
it's a convenient argument. It's just like the guy said, like Ryan is saying it, but that's because the toughest fights have the belts.
It's part of the theorem, right? It's part of the Tank Davis theorem, and by extension, the Ryan Garcia theorem is fight at catchweights. Don't hold yourself down to a particular weight class in which you're campaigning in. That way, nobody in that weight class is calling you out. You know, you become elusive, and on top of that, just say the belts don't matter. That way, you know, it doesn't matter. Like, the toughest fights are for the belts, and you say the belts don't matter, and you get enough people to agree with you, then you don't have to fight the tough fight. So that's part of it as well. But I also want to highlight something you said is I love this fight because, like you said, it went through a more traditional and tough process, and now we know who these fighters are, and they built it up to the pinnacle that it could possibly be. Right? Is, you know, if Devin Haney just comes about a belt. And maybe he's got two, and then maybe Lomachenko's got two, and then, you know, they're just fooling around. It's not as big as it is now.
Look, if the dude that cannot be mentioned was a lightweight, Loma would have fought him on the lead up to before fighting, you know, Haney. He would have done it. But he should not be mentioned, though.
And by the way, for the people new to the chat in the past 15 minutes, do not mention his name. Do not mention Morrell's name. My bad. Do not mention this guy's name on the screen. Don't do it. Do not do it. He is the name. He's like Voldemort in Harry Potter. You shall not mention his name. Do not say the M word. Do not say his name.
The M word?
So ridiculous. But do not say his name. But it highlights something, right? It's not manufactured. It's not artificial. This is the ocean. This is not a Shark Tank and aquarium. This is the ocean, big fish fighting each other. This is grown man business. And it's at its pinnacle because these guys went out and did the work. My frustration with a lot of the things that's been going on at 168 is not only it's different when you earn it than when you receive it as a stimulus check.
Yeah.
So, and it also makes a difference in how big the fight is. And it's also a sustainability problem because nobody's going to believe that even if you beat Canelo, that you're going to take that ball and run with it. That's the reason why if Canelo loses, he'll still be the star. And the guy who beats him will not be, because nobody believes that the guy that takes it from him will go ahead and run with it. That's how it used to work in boxing, right? Oscar fights Floyd.
Yep.
Floyd beats him. He runs 100%. With it. Pacquiao beats Oscar. Pacquiao takes that and runs with it. It doesn't feel that way anymore. And it's just because these guys feel like they can take shortcuts or have stuff fall in their lap. So this is the frustrating part of it. And like I told Beeb yesterday on his channel, I'm getting crankier at an old age. And I feel offended when people try to sell me a false goods, when people try to sell me a package that is not correct. That's why the Mexican monster thing is rubbing me the wrong way. After what I saw Saturday night, I saw a good fighter, not so much a monster. But on top of that,
plus there's only one, like the monster's named Inoue, like, and it's kind of like you just added Mexican on it now, like, and you want to call yourself what Inoue is calling himself. I mean, you know,
yeah. But on top of that, they're trying to paint a picture in which at 168, in which, all right, Caleb Plant. He was the monster when Canelo was at 160.
I mean, he's a monster until you mention a name that cannot be mentioned.
Billy Joe Saunders at 160 when Canelo was at 160. He was a monster, right? And then on top of that, now it's the guy we may not mention, right?
These dudes, they're like remember when James Brown would dance, like, yeah, come on, get it. Da-da-da. Living in America, and all that good stuff. And then he would like take the bow and then get the cloak and put it over him to protect him. You know what I mean? Like, that's what these are doing, bro. Like, as soon as you say the name that should not be mentioned, like Benavidez takes a bow and then they get the cloak and just like protect him. They just like put it over him. You know what I mean? Like I got you. Do not say the name. You will not say the name. You will not.
Yeah, they're trying to paint a picture, D-Style, in which, the monster he's reached the other side of the hill. So, all the Canelo fans are in their village, right?
Oh, my God.
Canelo's in his village, and Canelo is sitting there with his wife and saying, "Oh, my God."
But we already know the kryptonite
against Plant, and he's like, "Oh, my God, the monster. Oh, my God, these odds are insurmountable. This is a fight that we shall not fight. We shall not fight this fight." And all the Canelo fans are in their village, and, we're shaking. We're all shaking. And we see him come over the hill, and we're like, he's going to rape and pillage and set ablaze to our village. We shall not do this. And it's just not true. And we're watching this like, it's the false package that the monster is coming to your village and he's going to set everything ablaze, hide the women and children. And then what he does is he comes to your town and he just decisions everybody to death.
Yeah. Here's the thing, bro. Look, at the end of the day, Loma and Haney did it the right way. We came to this fight happen. It's at a pinnacle because you can actually do a package about these guys and who they fought. Remember they used to do that, like in the countdowns. Lennox Lewis, he fought so and so and so and so, and Tyson fought this guy and that guy, and then they would compare the common opponents. You know what I mean? Like they both fought Galata, and this is what happened when they fought that guy, and like that's what we want. We want these guys to fight all the other dudes so we can start comparing and do a compare and contrast and talk about it and talk about what happened to the chase in boxing. The chase. Most fans, like new fans, don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. The chase to the title. All right? They used to write songs about that, like the Eye of the Tiger song. Moving up. You know what I mean? Starting from the streets and moving your way up. Okay, they used to do packages about that. But now, no, you get apparently you get one good win and that's it. You have a get out of free jail card for forever. You just sit out. No. And this is not just about the dude that should not be names shall not be spoken. This is also it's a lightweight. Tank Davis fans want the guy to have the okay, he is the most popular lightweight. Okay, by the numbers and by the gait and stuff like that, right? He is. But he doesn't in terms of substance, he doesn't have the best resume at lightweight. He just doesn't. Okay? So we're not going to pretend he does. Like that is the absolute reality.
That's the part that bothers me. Like I said, is I don't want to be sold false goods. It's offensive to me. It was just like it was offensive 7, 8, 9 years ago when people were trying to tell me that Adrian Broner was the future pound for pound king, that he was the future Mayweather just because he did a couple shoulder rolls. A flat-footed dude who can't mix offense with defense is the next Mayweather. Is that what you're trying to sell me on? It was ridiculous. It was so ridiculous.
I certainly remember dudes will get mad at you too. Like they'll be like, "What does he call flat-footed? I seen AB move. I seen him move in the ring. I followed since the amateurs." And yeah, but guess what? When the level of opposition went up all of a sudden, you know what I mean? I mean, that dude fought Maidana, and that shit started the, dumb ways to die, like trend. So that fight, all right? And then I saw, who looked like the sweet scientist in Maidana Broner? Maidana.
He did.
because he set up. He was throwing the jab to the body, and he used it to set up a hook upstairs. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He outthought the supposal like master. Like Broner couldn't see a feint jab come upstairs with a hook. Mayweather would have saw that shit coming like a mile away, bro. Right? If you're a high IQ boxer, you see that coming. Okay, like point blank. So at the end of the day, look, I'm digressing. This is a fight that should be praised. Boxing fans should get behind the fight. You should support this fight. And why? Because you want to incentivize boxers to go this route. Why don't you want to incentivize boxers to take the tough fights on the lead up to a big fight? Mm-hmm. Why not? Why do you want to reward guys who sit out, have maybe not easy fights, but easier fights than these guys? I'm just saying.
Another good thing, it's $25 cheaper than Tank versus Ryan. So $59.99 ticket price, pay-per-view price.
It's still not going to sell as much, which hurts to say. It's just the truth, right?
It won't, but the good thing is Top Rank is not tone deaf here. Top Rank realizes that, yeah, we're going to a place in boxing where we're putting anything that has two champions or two names on it on a pay-per-view, which I hate. Right. Yeah. I hate that we're at a point where there's a pay-per-view, but they're at least listening to the market and saying, you know what? We're in a recession, whatever you want to call it. People aren't doing as well. So let's drop the price a little bit, right?
All I'll say is Keystone sells a lot too, but everybody knows it's it's not the legit beer, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like Ryan versus Tank is like this popular non-alcoholic drink that all the cool kids want to drink, right? And Loma Haney is Budweiser. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. Like so. At the end of the day, all I know is that part of me does bother me a little bit that the one fight is the legitimate lightweight championship of the world, undisputed, mm-hmm. right? The other one, they're selling it as a lightweight fight because Tank has a Reggie belt, right? But it's not a real title fight. It just isn't. No. So that does bother me. It does bother me that Ryan has not taken the path that Loma took to get to this point. Tank has not taken the path that Haney took to get to this point, and then you could vice versa it, right? Haney's going to fight Loma. Tank's made a career out of avoiding Loma. I mean, just think about that. Like Mayweather was his promoter actively saying, we ain't ready for Loma yet. We're going to wait for Loma. We're going to age Loma out. And Tank just let him do it.
And remember when he got pissed off with Tank that one time on social media and said, I'm going to just feed him to Loma? It's so weird. Their relationship is so weird. It's weird.
It is weird, right? But all I know is like this is the fight. Mm-hmm. And I hope boxing fans in this case, right? You guys could do what you want, but I hope, if you could afford it, buy this fight. Support this fight, right? Tell your friends about this fight, whatever it is. But I think it's going to be a good fight, actually. And I do agree with you that Loma will do a good job avoiding the clinch and turn that will make it a better fight.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Oscar Valdez on the undercard, leading up to his bigger fight. Not a great fight, but he's on it. And Juto Nakatani against Andrew Maloney. Now, that's a good fight. So that's on the undercard as well. But once again, it's a lower priced pay-per-view. Not the greatest pay-per-view in the world, but decent and lower price. And I think that main event is going to be nice. Now, as I spoke about with Beeb for a while yesterday too, is I'm drawn to fighters who pull a higher percentage of fights off of paper that are in demand and bring them into reality, right? Nobody's batting 1,000 out here. There's no fighter alive that's ever lived that's batted 1,000 with that. That's fully giving you every single thing you want, but the highest percentage, that's the people that I'm drawn to the most. And that's why I'm drawn to this fight as well, is these two fighters seem to be giving us that. And on top of that, I talk about this with Danny Garcia all the time. Nobody would have thought Like if you would have done back in 2012, early 2012, you would have said, who are the top 140 pounders in the world? Danny Garcia wouldn't have been in your top 5, D-Style. He wouldn't have been, like none of us. We would have said Amir Khan beats him. We would have said Lucas Matisse beats him. Lamont Peterson beats him. But guess what happens? He beats those guys. He beats him. He knocks out Amir Khan. He styles on Matisse, roughs him up. He beats Lamont Peterson. And we say, oh, what the hell? So when you take fights off of paper and bring them into reality, that's what kills me about boxing Twitter, YTBC, is people are constantly debating who will win this fight, who will win this fight. We got to do this forever because these dudes are fighting once per year and refusing to fight each other. I'm not
Can you
drawn
imagine
to
that's how it was done? Like, let's just hypothetically, let's say they didn't fight. Think about how stupid that would be. Like, why even do the sport? Why even have guys go to the ring and fight? If you're going to do imaginary fights, right? Like at that point, could you just imagine, like if instead of fighting, like they would just do polls, like or like they would just ask like the experts who they think would win. Well, in that case, like Sonny Liston washed, a young Cassius Clay, right? Yeah. Nobody was picking Cassius Clay. There's a video, it's on YouTube, where they're asking like reporters, they lined them up and they're like, Clay or Liston, and I'm hearing Liston, round 2, Liston in 3, Liston in 1, Liston in 2, right? But guess what? The 6-1 underdog, which at that time, being a 6-1 underdog, when it was one belt and you had to work your way up, back then you did have to fight the contenders, right? He had to fight Cooper and beat him, and like there was no such thing as I beat one top 10 guy, I'm in. Like no, you had to work your way up back then, right? The 6-1 was gigantic given those circumstances, right? For an undefeated guy that looked really good, he was a 6-1 underdog. But guess what? They put him in the ring, and he had to prove himself in the ring. Okay, Manny Pacquiao was a big underdog against De La Hoya, but they did the fight and he won. Like it is.
I was never supposed to happen.
Floyd have an L on his resume. We went with that.
Floyd was never underdog against Corrales. He was. I mean,
Floyd was an underdog against Diego Corrales, bro.
Yeah,
but he was an underdog, and it was his most dominant performance. You know what I mean? I just think about that. Can you hear me? I'm not sure if it froze on my end. Let me refresh. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Okay.
All right, I think we're back. We were buffering for a minute. But think about, what do you think Bob Arum would have thought a couple years ago, how the picture would have played out theoretically? Let's start with Lomachenko versus Teofimo. He would have thought, he wanted Lomachenko to win that fight. Yeah. Lomachenko's a 3-1 favorite. I'm convinced he wanted Lomachenko to be at the top of all of this, right?
100.
So after that, now Teofimo, we can accidentally build him as a star, right? And then what happens? He fights Kambosos, leaves top rank, comes back, fights Kambosos, loses. So now it's like, okay, let's try to build Kambosos in Australia. How'd that go? Devin Haney goes out there, beats him, and then beats him again. So now we've got Devin Haney on top. He may or may not be marketable. Let's try Lomachenko again. Let's say Lomachenko comes back and we got what we wanted from the beginning as far as Bob Arum's concerned. Right? Or Devin Haney wins, and then all of a sudden, the guy that Bob was not invested in at all at the very beginning,
right,
was not even thinking about at the time, is the guy. Maybe he's the guy.
We don't do fights on paper, bro.
Guy we don't know about. And this is what happens when we actually put the fights out.
Trinidad was supposed to beat Hopkins on paper. What happened? He got dominated by B Hop. Like it is what it is. This is why you fight the fights. This is why you do the fights. Okay. Like it is what it is. Like there's people that thought Jay Lacey was going to go out there and give Calazaghe the business. Didn't go that way. It was the opposite, actually, right? He embarrassed Jeff Lacey, right? So we got to see the fights on paper. Even now, when you look at it on paper, I don't know how the hell Mayorga beat Forrest. When you look at it on paper, but you watch the fight, you're like, hey, whatever. He's getting the best of him for whatever reason. Sometimes the calculations we have in our head, the algorithms we have in our head, and the way we envision things or the way they're supposed to be, they don't quite play out that way, right?
Such is
Like,
life.
you have the fight has to play out like it's the way it is. So we got to see these fights and stop making these hypothetical matchups, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are fans that do hypothetical matchups all the time, and say we don't need to see it. Like Jamal Charlo fans, for whatever reason, do it. Tank fans do it. Oh, I just see him and I know he's the best. Like, it's just like that, right? Could you imagine if other fan bases did this? Like, if Canelo fans did that, forget it, bro. Canelo fans
Could you imagine this guy's fan bases did
it? Do not say the name. Every time you guys keep saying the name. Look at this. Unbelievable.
But no, I mean, in theory, betting odds say Haney wins this fight. Track record tells us younger guy coming up in his prime or entering it, gets rid of the old guard, wins this fight. Haney remains undisputed. But stylistically, I'm not so sure. I don't know so much what to make of Lomachenko because there's a lot of mixed signals recently, right? He looked good, Nakatani, Comey coming off the surgery, and then he has a layoff. And Jermaine Ortiz, what do we make of Jermaine Ortiz? Maybe he's better than everybody expected, or maybe Lomachenko really is aging at a
Jamal Herring came out. Jamal was like, after the fight, he was like, "Why are you acting shocked? Like this dude beat me. I'm a former world champion. Shakur beat me, but that's Shakur, right?" Like, I'm just saying, bro.
So, I mean, stylistically, though, I don't think that the 12-round hit, hug, chop it up is going to work against Lomachenko, who is good at breaking the clinch. However, to go to, say, Nando has said this in the chat in my podcast for a while. He said, I think Lomachenko is overhyped, and there's a fair, that could be a fair assessment if you're listening to what ESPN is hyping Lomachenko up to be as he's fighting, before fights, after fights. And by the way, they do that. Every network does that with their top fighters, right? But I get it when I see, and I was texting you during the fight when Lomachenko fought Teofimo Lopez, and he's barely throwing punches through the first 7 rounds. And I'm like, what the hell? I remember texting you like, what the hell is going on? And you had guys on ESPN's commentator crew saying he's downloading data. And I'm looking at it the 5th round. I was like, no, he's losing the fight. He's not downloading data. And this is the part that I think frustrates people and rubs them the wrong way, is when a guy, sometimes in a fight, he's not downloading data. Sometimes he is just losing. And Lomachenko just straight up lost that fight. And I don't really know what to do with that. Shoulder injury, and that's not an excuse. You're trying to come up with a theory as to why he lost the fight. So maybe he had a shoulder injury. Maybe Jermaine Ortiz is better than expected. I don't know. Or maybe Lomachenko's just aging at an accelerated rate. And with that style, fighting bigger fighters, it works when you're the younger guy, right? It works when you're the younger guy using angles, and the bigger fighters are having trouble with what you're doing in there, right? But once you start to get a little older and those angles are getting a little bit tighter, that doesn't work as much. And that's not an excuse, by the way, because when Canelo lost to Bivol, I don't want to hear anything about he's stepping up in weight, because Canelo moved up in weight up to 168 because he wanted to fight bigger guys, right? It works for him. Same thing with Lomachenko here. I don't want to hear anything if he loses this fight.
We can't praise Canelo for, and he did. Like, he found a way to fight these taller guys and work it to his advantage, right?
He deserves
we talked about this for years. Even the phrase, he has the reach advantage. I don't even like the term advantage, because it depends. It depends.
The disparity.
Yeah. You should just say the disparity, say the difference, because when you're on the inside, like a Canelo, you turn that into an advantage, right? Yeah, like it is what it is, right? He turned like the size of Callum Smith against him.
Yeah.
Right. Like that became like a problem for Callum Smith. Right.
Yes.
And you could tell Bivol studied Canelo. You could tell he kind of knew what Canelo was trying to do. So he was ready for that. And then now it's up to Canelo to counter that, right? And make those adjustments. But at the end of the day, we can't praise Canelo for finding ways to turn disadvantages, quote unquote, right, into advantages. And then make size the issue, right, when he loses, right? Especially with a very slim, not very big 175 pounder, if we're honest.
Same with Lomachenko, and I'm just setting the table as to if he loses this fight, I don't want to hear the size disparity excuses, because he's been taking advantage of a size disparity throughout his career. And what is he? 9 lightweight fights in at this point? He's a lightweight. He's a lightweight, right?
We can't criticize Tank for doing catch weights and rehydration clauses and say, Tank, why are you doing that? Well, why don't you fight Ryan at his best? We can't do that. At the same time, say, oh, Loma, he's so little. It's unfair that Haney's so big. And because that's why we get catch weight fights in the first place, because of thinking like that at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Great fighters, Calix. Okay, great fighters overcome what we perceive as obstacles, right? Manny Pacquiao did it. I could promise you guys this right now. The size difference for Loma against his lightweights is nowhere near what it was for Pacquiao with the welterweights. It just isn't, right? So similar frame, similar height to Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao's fighting welterweights. So we've seen guys do greater things. Manny's one of them, right? So I just don't want to hear about the size thing. I personally don't, right? He's already been champion in 130 and 126, Loma, right? That's there. He did it. Now he's trying to be the man at 135. Talk about him like a lightweight, because that's what he is at the end of the day. Nakatani was big. Guess what? He fucked up Nakatani. So it is what it is.
And this is another thing that we don't want to hear, that Haney's weight drain. He's going back down. You can't make the excuse. You fight the fight. You agree to whatever's in the contract, and you go with it. But we just need to get ahead of this stuff. And the reason I'm bringing it up is we know these fighters, we know who they are because they've been in fights, but there are still wild cards. There are always wild cards in fights like this between great fighters who are somewhat evenly matched. Is Haney weight drained? Lomachenko, he's had a quickness and speed advantage. Can he still do that against a big lightweight as he ages and as those angles are a little tougher to figure out? Can Haney chop up the fight enough and slow it down enough in order to win a decision against Lomachenko, because he's not going to knock him out? Can Lomachenko speed him up? Can Lomachenko break those clinches on a high pace in order to? And then the other thing is, Lomachenko, will he start slow again? That's the thing. Will he start slow? He started slow in some of his big fights. He can't do that here. He started slow against Salido. He started slow against Teofimo. He started very slow against Teofimo. You can't do that again. I don't want to hear I don't want to hear he's downloading data. Will he be downloading data and not throwing punches in the first 4 or 5 rounds of the fight? Or will he just say, I'm going after this dude. I'm going after him. I'm going to throw my punches and get rid of the clinches.
I just want to say one more thing. Central and Senti style size is a factor. I never said it's not a factor, right? But keyword factor, right? Like that's, but you know what? It's not an excuse. Say, it being a factor and it being an excuse are two different things. They're not mutually exclusive, right? Lomachenko has been fighting at lightweight. He's had a lot of fights at lightweight already. Okay, he fought some top contenders to put himself in this position, right? It is what it is. Like, he's a lightweight right now. You could say he's a small lightweight, but he's a lightweight. And all I'm saying is that I believe that the better fighter is going to win this fight. I don't want to hear, oh, you only lost because of size, is what I'm saying, right? Like, I personally don't like that. It is what it is, but it is a factor, but it's not an excuse.
Mm-hmm. So some people are saying size is the only reason this matchup is intriguing, and that's fair, right? Is if these guys are naturally the same size, but once again, we go back to weight classes.
But people are factoring in like, is Haney going to kill himself? He didn't look so good at the weigh-in against
he looked like a
Cambosis in
skeleton.
October.
He looked like a skeleton. He still fought good, but much different opponent.
That's different opponent, and so it works both ways, guys. Like it could affect Haney negatively too, right? This may be the fight where he's like, there's a lot of people that say Teofimo stated just won too many fights at 135, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't think that's the case, really. I think he did have like an issue with his chest and stuff. But that's a different story. But look, all I know is that this is a good fight. This is the real lightweight championship of the world. This is like the fight of the boxing fans. This is what this is, okay? At the end of the day, all right? And I'm personally looking forward to it.
This is authentic. It's real. Real belts.
No auto-tune.
Real weight class. You can have 17 weight classes, 18 if you're counting Bridger weight, which you love. But pick a weight class, fight in it. That's what these guys are doing. One's draining himself down. One would rather fight up. They both, like we said, disparities, right? Not advantages. And Lomachenko, up to this point, he's had advantages in fighting bigger fighters because he uses his angles. Haney's had advantages in being the bigger guy coming up because he can hold, wrestle a little bit, chop up fights, use his jab. Which one will be the advantage here? That's why we call it a disparity. Which one will win the day here? That's another thing that makes it interesting, but authentic. And we seem to be pulling more fights off of paper and putting them into reality, right?
Yeah.
And that's a good thing here. That's a good thing here. It's not healthy to have your top 10 pound-for-pound fighters in the sport fighting a combined 14 times like they did in 2022. It's not healthy for the sport to have the first appearance we're going to have from a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter this year will be Canelo on May 6th. That's not healthy. It's not healthy. So now we're starting to get some pound-for-pound fighters, or perhaps a pound-for-pound fighter in a Devin Haney if we're talking about Ring Magazine's rankings. But both of these guys are in different pound-for-pound rankings. It's good to see these guys waking up, getting things going, and it's good to see two of them fighting each other. That's another part of this that we didn't touch on is pound-for-pound implications. It's not only undisputed. Whoever wins this fight's on the pound-for-pound list. I don't know where you're going to have them, but they're on the top 10 pound-for-pound list, whoever wins this
all I know is that this fight is Nas, right? And these other guys is like whoever the top mumble rapper is right now. That's selling more than Nas ever sold. But is it better? I mean, I don't know. All right? No auto-tune. That's all I know. No,
that's a great comparison. That's a great comparison. On that note, we are out of here. I appreciate everybody coming through. See y'all tomorrow. Put the X's up. Peace. God bless. We out.